Hi there, it's John. Thanks again for following us at FinTech Plus. I am very pleased to be joined today by Ritesh Singhania. He is the co-founder and COO of ClearGlass. Hi, Ritesh. How you doing?
Hey, John. Nice to meet you.
We were pleased to be meeting Chris last week, and he had a discussion with me about a few big topics around fintech. But I'm very excited to be joined by you today so that we can focus a bit more on ClearGlass, because I think it's a great story. Before I dive into my questions, do you want to quickly just introduce ClearGlass, and then we can get going?
Thanks, John. Hi, my name is Ritesh. I'm the CEO and co-founder at ClearGlass. What we're trying to do at ClearGlass is to bring transparency into the world of pension funds. And what we're really trying to do is help pension funds answer two important questions. One is, how much are you actually paying for asset management? And the second question is, are you paying more or less than what you should be paying for those asset managers? So those are the two important things that we're trying to solve with what we're doing at ClearGlass.
Thank you for the introduction to the company, Ritesh. We're going to talk a lot more about it, and there's been some great news recently. You guys are receiving a lot of attention and have just raised funds. We'll get into that. But before I do, I always like to start with the personal side of things. This is a one-on-one discussion. Can you tell us a bit about how you got started as an entrepreneur, your professional background, and the rest of your story?
Early part of my life was in India. I'm a mechanical engineer by education, went on to work in an automobile company, and just realized that I wasn't enjoying the work. I didn't feel content with what I was doing. And I went back home and started a manufacturing unit. So my dad used to trade in scrap railway tracks with the Indian Railways, and I was a mechanical engineer. And what I built was a process to recycle those scrap railway tracks into agricultural products, and we set up a manufacturing unit. That has actually now turned into a family business. My parents run it. I ran it with them for about 2.5 years, but later on realized I wanted to go on and do other things. Did management consulting for about a year. Didn't really enjoy it because I really enjoyed seeing things through and implementing them by my own hands, and realized that I wanted to go back and be an entrepreneur again, and started a digital company back in India again, started a clean energy company again. So I've been on this entrepreneurial journey, if you like, up to 2018 when I started ClearGlass. And the idea has always been to solve a problem that I care about, build something with people I enjoy building, and then finally creating value in the world. So that has been the three fundamental principles, if you like, that has led me to where I am today.
You skipped off one of the most interesting parts, and I guess this probably isn't what you would credit those great values to, but it contributed to them. You also studied for an MBA at Oxford, right? Can you talk about that experience and especially how it provided you with resources as an entrepreneur? Because I think these days a lot of people are questioning whether the investment and the time taking an MBA is worth it, really, right?
That's a really good point, John. I think we often talk about the networking, if you like, in the MBA and what do you get out of the MBA. Is this networking real or not? But the person with whom I started ClearGlass, who's Chris here, did the same program, but I think a few years before I did. But I met Chris through Oxford. I met him in one of the conferences that was organized by Oxford. That's where we met. That's where we became friends. And that has sort of led us to trust in each other to start a company and run a company together, which is successful today. So, so I think everyone has got their own reasons to do an MBA, but the important thing is to know what you want out of it and what you want to do after. That helps you get what you want out of the program. So beyond the education, beyond the learnings that you get, the networking that we talk about is for real. And what I've got is a live example of that.
That's great to hear. I was really blown away by the college life experience, which I was aware of, but didn't fully appreciate until I had been through it. And again, on another level, mixing with different ages of students and people studying things outside of business was a really unique experience to Oxford, I think. And it goes way beyond the usual kind of jokes about wearing capes to write exams and funny things like that we still had to do there, right? I think they're still doing that, of course. Traditions are important, but so is innovation. And speaking of which, I wanted to start by talking about the company. What was the inspiration? What can you tell us about the market and the opportunity that you saw and where you fit into the existing competition there?
Absolutely. So in terms of what we're doing at ClearGlass, if you like, is solving a massive social problem. Because even though maybe what I'll do is that I'll talk a bit about the actual problem that we are solving, and then I can talk about the market and the competition. If you think about it, what we are trying to do is help pension funds understand how much are they are paying for these asset management services. And in the end, what we really want to drive is reduction in price because they don't know what they are paying, and chances are very high that they're overpaying for their asset management services. Now, if you think about this from a consumer's perspective, if we can reduce the cost of of the pension funds that they're paying for by 1% over their lifetime, you retire with twice as much pensions as you would otherwise. So, with all the work that we are doing, if we can even bring about 0.5% of reduction, that's a massive, massive increase in the fund size of what people are retiring with. And that was an important reason for why we started ClearGlass, is to drive that social purpose home, is to bring that change and help people retire more comfortably. So that was the problem that we were trying to solve with the work that we were doing. And if you think about the market and opportunity, it's everyone who's retiring. Everyone who's retiring across the world has got this problem. They're overpaying for what they're paying at the moment. And probably the fundamental question is they don't even know what they're paying for at the moment.
So Ritesh, how did you actually put together the business? How does ClearGlass actually solve that problem, and what do you offer your clients?
So if you like, what Chris has done, so probably to add little bit more to it, that Chris, who's my co-founder, was asked by the FCA to chair a group that was responsible to build a standard. And what that standard does is that it helps every asset manager use one frame of reference to disclose their cost. And what we have done is we have built a platform. We've leveraged technology, we've leveraged data, we've leveraged standard to build a digital communication between an asset manager and a pension fund. And we solve that problem of communication using the standard, which also helps us to compare their cost. So what we've really done is that we've taken all of the work that the FCA and the regulators have done and brought it to life, put it into practice to help asset owners understand things, to make it easier for them, to make it more obvious for them to understand where they are overpaying, how much they are overpaying, and what conversations can they have with their asset managers. So a lot of the work that Chris has done is in building those standards, but what I have done or what I am good at is bringing them to life. How do you take an idea? How do you take a problem and solve it? And solve it from very small stage. Start with building something, expanding on it, scaling it up, and then finally building the infrastructure that can support to the entire asset owner community, if you like.
That's great to hear about the co-founder story, and as well the complementary skills of the vision and the execution, because that is so critical and sometimes difficult for one person to do on their own. You mentioned the company was founded in 2018. Can you talk a bit about the milestones, because it's been quite a rapid trajectory, and I want to ask you a bit more about the financing story in a moment.
Absolutely. So when it started off in 2018, it was primarily just Chris and I realizing that we wanted to solve this problem, and we put in our savings to build a product. All we did was we said we're going to do this. We put in our savings. We didn't go to the market to raise any money. I think a lot of it was because we believed in it and we wanted to solve this problem. So I think something which I really want to highlight, John, is that it's super important for founders to have conviction in what they are doing, and that really goes a long way in terms of how quickly they're able to achieve these things. Because if you would have decided to go out to the market and raise money at that stage, probably it would have delayed things by another 6 to 9 months. But we are willing to put in what we had, and I had a few friends back in India with whom I built companies. Went back to India because that's where I knew the engineers, build a product, and we launched in January 2019. So if you realize from the point of us deciding to build a company, to incorporate a company, to launch a live product, all of this happened in 6 months because we wanted to solve the problem and went ahead and did it and launched. I mean, January, the moment we launched, we had our proof of concept clients. Chris had a network that he could go to in terms of winning clients. I had a network of engineers where I could go to build products. And that also shows that why it's important to have those complementary skills when you're starting a company, because it means you can go a lot further. So in terms of milestones, if you like, summer of 2018 is when we decided to do it. January 2019 is when we launched the product, and we had paying clients from day one. Our single most important focus has been clients, is to constantly go and speak to clients, constantly get them to use the product, because that has determined everything that we have done, our direction that we have taken. In terms of milestones, I would say that a big milestone came for us was in around March 2019 when we got Aon as our first institutional client. I mean, Aon is the second largest pension fund consultant or an aggregator, if you like, in the space, and they believed in us. They signed up onto the platform, and that gave us a distribution channel to about 450 or so DB pension fund clients. And what that does is that not only gives you a distribution channel to 450 clients, but it also gives you access to all of the asset managers who they serve on the other side of the market, which meant that we not only won pension funds, but also asset managers, because what we were trying to build is a line of communication, and Earn played a big role in facilitating things. And we never look backwards, to be honest, from there in terms of winning clients. I mean, at this stage, we have got 500 or so DB clients on our platform, and I've just kept on winning clients. The next key milestone that came in our journey was around funding. I mean, throughout, if you like, from January 2019 to end of December 2020, we were self-funded. We were funded initially by our own savings and then by the money that we made from the clients. But it was only in December 2020 where we got some institutional investors to invest in us because they believed in us.
Congratulations. That's a great story. The news of Lakestar getting involved recently was something that I really took a lot of notice in. I'm a big fan of Nico Brandt and the whole team at Lakestar, and we've worked with them over the years and some of the things we've done here in Switzerland. I think it was also notable that they invested in you in the middle of the COVID pandemic, which must have made it very difficult, especially for a company moving as quickly as you. Do you want to speak at all about how that went and your experience with that?
I'm going to talk about two things here, John. One is that how that experience went and why we went with Lakestar as well. I still remember the first conversation that Chris and I had with Nico, and he believed in us. I think that goes a long way in terms of why you decide to work with an institutional investor, because when you start this journey, you're probably on with them on this journey for the rest of the life of the company, if you like. And when we had that first conversation with Nico, his comment was, I get it. I get the problem that you guys are solving, and it's a big problem. It's not just a problem in the UK, it's a global problem. And it wasn't really us trying to sell to Nico, trying to pitch to Nico. It was a conversation where he believed in the problem, he believed in us, and he also believed the fact that we were probably one of the best people to solve this problem, and that led to where we are today. So a lot of it goes down to chemistry in terms of who you work with and why you work with them. And we knew that we wanted to work with Nico, and things progressed very quickly from that first conversation to term sheet to them investing in us and where we are now.
Nico's a fun guy. We had a great speech from him a few years ago at a pitch event here, where he described instead of pitching the company, he described how meeting your investor was like falling in love, and it sounds like that type of genuine relationship building has been experienced by other people, and it's been successful. We're having a lot of fun here and joking a bit. What have been the challenges in what you're doing? Because you guys are changing the industry, and entrepreneurship is never easy, especially right now when you look at your business. What are some of the challenges that you're working to overcome and move it forward in?
I think every day is a challenge, John, and especially in the COVID world where we are. I still remember that when COVID hit, we had no institutional backing. We were just funded by the money that we were making from the clients. If I rewind back to March 2020, we went to all of our team members, if you like, and said that what we really want to do is that we want to increase our runway to as long as we can till we don't raise any external money. And as founders, we're going to let go of all of our salaries. And we were wondering if you would be willing to take some salary sacrifice to help us increase our runway. And that wasn't an easy conversation to have in the middle of COVID. But the most important thing was we tried to build trust with our team members and let them say that, or told them that the entire reason why we want to do that is not only to increase our runway, but also to make sure that we stick together and we don't have to let go of anyone during this hard time of COVID. And surprisingly or not surprisingly, everyone took a pay cut. Everyone. And that shows that there's challenges, but if you build the right company, build the right culture, people stick by you, and that's super important in your journey to success. So I think the people element, the money element is important. It's a challenge that you face every day as you're trying to build the company. But also in terms of in terms of convincing the clients that's the right thing to do, why they should care about their costs when pension funds have been going on for years and decades and centuries. That why is it now that you need to ask your asset manager for your cost and need to understand these costs? Because back in the day, the only thing people have cared about is net performance. So convincing an industry, convincing people to work with you. I mean, most people don't find pension funds sexy, and they're like, why do we want to work for a company that's solving a problem in this industry? We would rather go and work for a retail banking or an insurance startup. So having those conversations, convincing people to work with us from a team perspective, convincing people to use us from a client perspective, and convincing investors to believe in us and invest in us from an investor perspective, it's a challenge that we face every day. But the way we get around these questions is the mission, is that why we are doing this, and people resonate with that problem. So I think it's super important to get your story right, and why you're doing what you're doing has helped us to get how far.
That was actually a question I was going to follow up about, which is how do you really keep the team focused and balanced and remain inspired, especially during challenging times and while the team is growing rapidly. But it sounds like purpose and meaning is at the center of everything you guys are about, right?
Absolutely, John. I think one thing what happens is that whenever we go and try and hire or have those conversations, the first thing that everyone would want to say is that we want to create an impact with the work that we do. Everyone in this time wants to create an impact because of the times that we are in. And what we do at ClearGlass is two things that we do well. One is it's our mission, it's a problem, it's the social cause that we are fighting for. And second is also the culture that we have built within the company, which is ownership driven culture. We don't tell people what to do, we don't tell people what the solutions to the problems are, but we let people own those problems. We let them own the solutions to those problems. And our job as founders, if you like, is to facilitate, to make sure they're able to implement the best possible solution. And a combination of those two things has helped us massively, not only to retain talent, but also to attract the best talent to work with us.
That's great to hear, and I think also important when you look at the ambitions, which is what I wanted to ask you about as we start to round the corner here. What are the growth plans? I mean, you've mentioned a few times parts of the vision of where ClearGlass is going, but could you talk more specifically about where you're moving forward in terms of markets and internationalization in the coming months and years?
In terms of the markets that we are in currently, so we're definitely in the UK. We have got some clients in Europe. We've got some clients in South Africa. We are speaking to some clients in the Middle East and Dubai as well. And if I think about all of the clients that we are speaking to, which is outside the UK, all of that has been inbound. All of this has been at the back of the work that we have done in the UK, but also it validates a huge part of what we are doing, which is it's a global problem. It's not just a problem in the UK. And so, if you like, our plan is to go outside the UK. So, South Africa and Europe are the two markets that we are targeting. So, we are actively expanding to Europe. We have hired someone who's got relationships with the Pension Fund Association in France, in Germany, in Sweden, and other places. So that's a part of the market which we are going to expand into 2021. So that's more around the geography side of things, if you like. But there's other elements of what we are doing, which is around value for money, if you like, which is helping pension funds assess best funds in which they are invested in. And what cost does is it gives them a denominator, it gives them a frame of reference to understand how much they are paying, but doesn't tell them much around the value that they're getting. And the way people assess value nowadays, if you like, is not just performance, but also ESG, i.e., how green is my fund. Then is around voting and engagement, which is where are my managers voting? Are they voting for assets which are green? Then it's around diversity. And there are a whole host of things that people care about when they make those investments. And at ClearGlass, what we are really doing is now expanding into other verticals or other lenses that helps pension funds to assess their managers from multiple lenses and not just through the lens of cost. Because if you think about it, in the last 2 years, what we have really built is a network of 450 plus asset managers and 500 plus pension funds. These pension funds want to know more things from their asset managers, and we can help them provide that lens. So that's the aspect of the company or the vertical we are expanding into in 2021.
Really interesting stuff. And I want to get back to ask you a couple of big questions about how that all works and some of the themes around pensions and how they're changing. But before I do that, I thought it would be helpful for our audience just to understand things a bit better if we showed them a little bit of what actually ClearGlass does with its platform. Would that be possible?
Absolutely. Why don't I share my screen and talk through some of the things that we are doing at the moment for pension funds? So if you look at the simple report that's produced by a platform for a pension fund, what we start with is telling pension funds what is their cost. So for an example, this pension fund, which has got 840 million in assets under management, is paying 3.6 million, i.e. 37.6 basis points as their total cost. So that's where we start from. But then what we do is that we start to drill down and tell them things that they haven't heard before. Why don't I go into a graphical view, which will help us understand things a bit better? So if you look at it, this transaction cost element of it is something which pension funds have never seen or never been aware of, which is about 13.7% of their cost. Again, if you look at this, which is 5% of their additional fund expense, which they have no idea. The only thing that the pension funds have been aware of in the past is the annual management charge, which is around 76% of the cost. But the 24%, which we uncover with the work that we do, has been a black hole for them. And that's the work that we are doing, which is helping them understand how much does it truly cost to invest in asset management. But also the second thing that we help them understand is, are they paying above or below the benchmark? So why don't I share another screen and show through what that means is that, so if you look at the screen here on the right-hand side, a pension fund has got investments in active equity, fixed income, and multiple portfolios. The thing on the right-hand side tells them whether they are below median or above median. And as you can see with this example, there are 3 funds where they're paying more than what they should. And this gives them an indicator that they need to do something about these funds. And that's the value that we are providing to them, which is helping them understand where they're paying more than what they should and need to have a conversation with their asset managers.
Thanks for that glimpse at things, Ritesh. I know it's an awfully complicated business, and of course, the complexity of some portfolios can be a bit different than what we can show here today with the time we have. I wanted to touch on a couple of final questions. The first one was more specifically, you mentioned ESG a while ago, and we speak to a lot of companies, whether it's with ESG information or other sources of data that are coming together now. And the whole topic of connectivity, APIs, and how do you bring it all together is a big thing. How does that work at ClearGlass, and how are you aggregating the various sources of data that are relevant for your business?
Absolutely. I think when we talk about ESG, there's a lot of noise in the market. Everyone's talking about it because it's the in thing, if you like, and everyone wants to do something about it. But the most important thing that anyone needs if you're trying to do anything in the ESG space is to understand where your assets are invested, which is the holdings data. So if you got an investment in an active equity or a passive equity fund, what you really need to know is, where is the money invested? What kind of companies are these funds buying? And because of the network that we have built with our asset managers, the first part of the problem that we are solving is getting that holdings data, which is to help a pension fund understand where are their assets actually invested and what's the weightage of those assets across a quarter, across a year. Once you have got those assets and understand where your money is invested, is then you can tap into any of the ratings that are available for the ESG rankings of the different assets. But the problem that the industry has got is that no one even knows where these assets are invested. What people really know is, which fund is my money invested into, but they don't know the underlying assets and what's the weighting of those assets. But because of our relationship and the network that we have created with asset managers, we are going and collecting the holdings data and understand where the money is actually invested. We would still wait a little bit till the point the market has uniformed their view in terms of which ranking they want to use and how do they want to rate those assets, if you like. But till the point, we want to build this underlying infrastructure that helps people understand where their money is actually invested.
That's very important work. I wanted to ask a big question, which was about basically some of the high-level societal challenges around pensions and the way that fintech is deeply embedded in helping to solve them. In my lifetime, I studied for a CFA, and I know one of the important things that we learned about was the shift from defined benefit to defined contribution pension plans. And it amazes me that even here in Switzerland, which is a very wealthy country with great financial management, they have a pension crisis in their state pension as demographics shift. And here we are in the middle of a pretty big shift in the world. Fintech is being discussed, and what's also happening in parallel to things with pension plans specifically is this idea that the world is changing more quickly and corporate life cycles are getting shorter. And that's a good thing in some ways, but then when we look at how it impacts people, we hear about the gig economy and how even for professionals, you might change from being a corporate executive to an entrepreneur to an investor. And that obviously has connections back to people's pensions as well. How do you look at some of those big topics out there in the world? And as a fintech entrepreneur, what is your thought on the role that fintech plays in helping to solve these challenges?
I think if I take this journey, if I step 5 or 7 years back, I think the place where we are in as individuals is we want transparency. And the biggest problem that we've got with pension funds is the lack of transparency that exists. People don't even understand what's happening with their pensions. And the industry has probably purposely made it complex for people to understand, in which case they're not going to do anything about it, in which case nothing ever gets done, if you like. So I think what we really need to do or really need to change in the world of pensions is to make things easy for people, is to make things transparent, which is going to lead to engagement from people like you and I. I mean, at least if I think about it, people like you and I, John, from the industry, and we talk about this problem, but someone who's not even related to this, someone who's an artist, doesn't even know what's happening with their pensions. And for them to get engaged with their pensions, it's really important for us to make it easy. And it really started from the world of Revolut, if you like, with the retail banking, where people were saying, I don't want to travel from UK to US and pay a whole lot of exchange fee when I'm converting my pounds to dollars. I want to understand at what rate is my money converted. I want to know that. This wave of transparency transferred from retail banking to the space of insurance, where we didn't want to pay the brokers. What we really wanted was to go to an online platform and buy insurance on the spot. That led to the wave of transparency in insurance, i.e., insurtech. Now, the problem we've got with pensions is that it's opaque, it's complex, and it's not helping us. We need to make it transparent. We need to make it easy, which will let people like you and I and all of the consumers to engage, and that is going to help make that change. As you can see with the companies like PensionBee, which has done a fantastic job of engaging with people. If there's one startup, one fintech in the space of pensions that's made a significant impact, and people talk about it, people recognize with it, is PensionBee. We need more of PensionBees in the world to make it easy, to make it transparent for people to engage. And that's going to help create a change because they're going to create the pressure on the government. They're going to shout about it, talk about it, and make sure that the pensions are invested in the right place.
It's interesting you mentioned PensionBee. I was going to focus on ClearGlass today, but we do like to recognize leaders, and I've heard about PensionBee for years from the good folks at FINTECH Capital, who are also, I think, great thought leaders in fintech. What is it that you think complements what you're doing from PensionBee, or how do you guys compare to what they're doing?
I think it's important to recognize that we're trying to bring a massive change in the industry, and no one can do it alone. So it's super important to recognize the community you're a part of, a community of entrepreneurs, a community of people who are trying to do something similar. So it's absolutely important to recognize what PensionBee is doing or what we are doing because we are all in this journey together to create that change. In terms of what I really like about PensionBee is they've started the conversation. They've started the dialogue for a Joe to have a conversation about their pensions. It wasn't a thing back in the day. When I speak to a peer who's my age, they talk about pensions. A lot of it is to do with the work that PensionBee has done. They've made it easy for consumers to understand what's going on with their pensions and make them feel engaged. And that's a big part of the puzzle that a lot of the other people haven't been able to solve.
Thank you for such genuine comments. I really appreciate that. And I wanted to pick up on what you mentioned before, the massive trend of increasing transparency. And I think you were also alluding to another part of that, which is increasing knowledge and informing people about what they're facing in the world. And I think that's also a part of this enhanced collaboration we see in the digital economy and the new economy emerging. So it's great to hear it reflect in what you do. It's certainly part of what we do here at FinTech Plus. I think we've talked about a lot, and I don't want to overwhelm people. What I'd really like to wrap up with is reminding people again that ClearGlass is out there growing and in the markets we discussed. Do you want to say a few last words, especially about those who are interested to get in contact or do business with ClearGlass?
Absolutely, John. I think if you're a pension fund trustee, if you advise a pension fund, or if you're an asset owner as part of the institutional space, speak to us, because we can help you understand how much you're paying for asset management services and what you're paying is the right amount, what you should be paying. So if there's anything that you would like to speak to us, please reach out to me at ritesh@clearglass.com. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you again, Ritesh, for taking the time to join us today and being so open and transparent about the cool things that you're doing. I know that it's sometimes a lot of pressure when you have a new investor and a fast growth company, but it's always important to take some time out and connect with others. So we appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thanks a lot, John. It's been a pleasure.
Great. And enjoy the rest of the lockdown. We're looking forward to catching up in the coming months.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Ciao, ciao.